Welcome to Choppin It Up, a podcast powered by Journey, where we talk about free, how people got to where they are, and their career journeys, pun intended. All right, let's chop it up. Hello. Welcome to Choppin It Up. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. And today I have Chadd Olesen, CEO of AVRL. Chadd, thanks for joining us.
Hey man, how we doing?
Man, we're great. Chicago is good. We're starting to turn a little bit to winter, but such is life. We'll be okay.
Yeah, dude, we got that winter storm coming to Austin today. It's 100% humidity out, you know.
Way too much humidity.
Yeah.
Way too much. Oh, man. Well, you know, we had the pleasure of meeting via LinkedIn a couple of years ago. It was so cool. I think I exchanged a message with you and was like, man, let's just hop on a call. I want to just kind of get to know you. And it's been amazing learning about you and your business. So fun to finally have you on the podcast.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me. This is great.
Of course. So before we dig in, would love to hear a Chadd fun fact. You got anything for us?
I don't know if my customers are going to like this fun fact if they're listening, but I've been to 72 countries.
Whoa.
So we're good.
72 is a lot.
Yeah.
What was your most recent one?
Most recent country. My most recent new country, or where did I just last go?
Let's go most recent.
I had actually, I'm going to count this as new because I had been to Geneva before, but I had never spent time in Switzerland. And this summer, my wife and I went to Switzerland, and it was incredible. And I had a board meeting that was in northern Italy, and we jumped it for a couple of weeks and just hung out there. I think I could text you. I was like, hey, I'm going to Saint-Tropez. I'm going to stay an extra week. And I was planning to come back, and I just didn't. But
yes. I love both of those places. Switzerland it might be the most picturesque place I've ever seen. It looks fake.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah. It's awesome. I thought I was going to be overhyped, and I've been to a lot of the Alps, but the Swiss Alps are absolutely incredible. Highly recommend. Interlaken is chef's kiss, you know.
Yes. It's so beautiful, man. I'm glad that you got a chance to actually do a business meeting over there. That's kind of a big deal. That's sick.
You know, part of my team lives in Europe, and so they're always like, hey, we can come to Canada? And I'm like, no, can we go to Europe, and I'll meet you guys somewhere in Europe? And I have a big group of people right now that are on my team that are in Austria this week meeting. And so it's kind of the cool thing about the international business is that going over there, doing that.
Totally. That's awesome, man. Well, let's go ahead and dive in here. I would love to learn a little bit of your personal background. So take me back to the young days of Chadd before we dive into the cool stuff that you're building today.
So young days of Chadd probably started around 5th grade. And this is a really interesting moment for me. My dad retired. I was in 5th grade, and we moved back to where my mom grew up. My family has a century farm. It's a massive grass seed farm in Oregon. And when my dad retired, he wanted to just be a farmer and not be in the corporate world anymore. And I would say that was probably the most pivotal moment for me from the standpoint of that's really when I started working. And we didn't have a choice. It was summer, I'm working, driving combine, working in warehouse, things like that. And I think that really shaped me. My parents are fairly intelligent, and I think that they did that specifically to teach us about work ethic and hard work and stuff like that.
There's a lot to be learned at a young age when you got to roll your sleeves up and do the work.
Yeah. And I remember being young, and my mom would be like, okay, on Sunday, you got to go to church or you got to work. And I would be like, I'll go to work today. But I think that that's kind of how I was raised. And you can't see it, but I have a grass seed bag on the wall. My sophomore year of college was the last year that I worked on my family's farm. On my last day, I took a grass seed bag, and I carried it with me for years. And I finally got it framed when my grandpa died. And it's something that I have on my wall, and it just reminds me of that every single day. It's pretty cool.
I love that. I'm sure we'll dig in here, but the core motivating factors for everybody, they're all different and they're like personal things typically. And it's really nice to have something that roots you back to the young age of hard work and things you had to do, but has a good memory of the family and stuff like that. It's awesome.
It's more than that for me. I grew up in this really small town, and anyone who grew up in a really small town probably resonates with, like, a lot of people stay there and like they never change, and you could go back home today and go to the tavern and like they'd be still talking about like the glory days. And when I left, I kind of never looked back, and I'm sure that hurts some people. And I know like a lot of my parents' friends are really proud that I like broke out, went and did my own thing. I live in Austin, Texas now, which is something that would be super intimidating and scary for a lot of people. But I think for me, it's not necessarily just like the work ethic, but like I feel like I have something to prove coming from a town of 1,400 people,
Oh, yeah. So where did you grow up? What town did you grow up in?
So I grew up, my family's farms in this little town called Peoria, Oregon, which is like right outside of Corvallis, Oregon, if you know where like Oregon State plays. Yeah. And I grew up there. It's grass seed capital of the world. More grass seed is grown there than anywhere else in the world. And a lot of it gets shipped out of there, but like you can't even see another house from where I grew up. It's kind of like that is that rural.
Man, that's awesome. So let's talk about, obviously, hard work as a young gun, rolling your sleeves up, working on the farm. What type of stuff outside of that did you gravitate towards as a kid that maybe led to some of the stuff that you work on today?
I mean, I think that like work was just pounded into me from like every aspect. Like I wasn't allowed to have bad grades growing up. It doesn't mean I was a good student. I played baseball on like many like traveling teams. I played club baseball all the way up until I went to college, where I was recruited to play baseball. But I was a nerd at heart. Like computers were a big part of what I was interested in, which is kind of an interesting breed from like the athlete to that group of people.
The athlete to computer nerd pipeline is not too strong.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think what it is like when you grow up in a really small town like that, sports is king. Sports is everything. Tinker Hatfield, the guy who created the Jordan, came from my town. And so like, there was like a big like part of like that in that town. And so you weren't cool if you weren't band. You weren't cool if you were in choir. You weren't cool if you like did anything like that. Sports are kind of life there. But as you grow up, you realize like, oh man, maybe that's not what I'm interested in. And a lot of the people who I haven't stayed in contact with very many people from high school for me, but the people that I have were probably the people who played sports, didn't necessarily want to necessarily do that. Maybe they're really into music. Maybe they're really into other things.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So into computers at a young age still, doing your thing, playing baseball up until you got to college. Where'd you go to school?
So I went to school at this school called George Fox, which is in Oregon. It's an Oregon State feeder school. Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what'd you study?
I studied like the easiest thing I could study, business. It was like worthless, I didn't learn anything at school.
Totally. So did you teach yourself during college and before college the stuff that you know about computers, machine learning, all that stuff? Because we'll start to peel back layers over time. Or did that come during your time in college?
It was a time in college and then after college. So I really wasn't super hyper focused on entrepreneurship, on creating AVRL or any type of company before. It wasn't until, I was probably a really awful student and probably went to school for the same reason that a lot of people do, which was to party and have fun and like do that thing. And luckily I'm intelligent enough to just not do homework, pass tests, get through and move on. Yeah. It wasn't until after where I have a hard time working with people, surprise, where I was like, wow, maybe I should go do my own thing.
Yeah. Some of the best entrepreneurs are not good students because what you want to spend your time on is what you want to spend your time on. And school often is things you have to spend your time on to check the boxes to get through. Not saying school is bad, but if there's something that you want to go and do and it doesn't check those boxes, you're not going to be interested. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like weird to say out loud on a recorded session, but I don't even think I liked learning until maybe I was 25.
But you've probably found something that you wanted to learn about.
Yeah.
So let's talk origins of AVRL. When did you start the organization?
We launched the company in January 2017. But my CTO and I had been working on it for about a year and a half, the technology for about a year and a half before we incorporated the company. It's about 2015.
Okay. How long after college was this?
I graduated college in 2010. So about 5 years after college.
And in between that time, how did you become proficient with the skills to be able to start building something like the base product of AVRL?
So I had tried to start another company with a group of people before. That company was called Plunk, and we tried to bring this very similar technology, what a AVRL originally was, to market. And Plunk was targeting towards advertising agencies where we would go and sell these like NLP systems to creative organizations. And really the launch of that was we sold this application to Pepsi for the Super Bowl that was in New York. Someone would walk up to a TV screen. There was a holographic human. You'd say like, hey, what's the best pizza in New York? And it would query Google and run through a system and then speak back to you like the best pizza in New York. You could ask it for anything. And we, through this is actually how I ended up meeting Nikolai, which was someone connected us thinking that I was working on the same exact thing as him. His was dominantly better than mine. I started to dump all of that and go work on this.
Okay, so you meet Nikolai. You were working on Plunk with Nikolai, or was that
with some other people? Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so when you and Nikolai started working together, what was the base original product that AVRL was going to be?
So AVRL stands for Advanced Voice Research Labs. And when we were like creating the company, we're going to go with this old school Silicon Valley name and come in and like dominate. And it was based off of voice technology. So essentially you have unique parts of speech recognition where you speak to like an Amazon Alexa as an example. The microphone measures pressure waves and it turns those pressure waves into unstructured text. And then after that, you have natural language processing that turns that unstructured text into data that the machine can read, something like JSON, etc. And we were working on a system that could correct for mistranscriptions in speech recognition. So right now, we're like massively speculative of the market. There's a lot of voice technology coming into transportation. But speech recognition is still really awful because it's location based. So let's say you had like someone with a thick Russian accent speaking in Birmingham, Alabama versus Dallas, Texas versus Portland, Oregon versus like Wisconsin, you would get different transcripts of data out of that because it's localized to a geography. There's not a Russian population in Birmingham, Alabama. They've never heard that kind of phonetic-based sequencing before. That's what we had built it based off of. We got really lucky when we launched AVRL. Our first customer was BMW.
Not a bad logo.
Yeah, it was. We built a bunch of tech for their in-car voice system for their really high-end cars. And that was kind of it. What had happened was that we got a massive offer from a really big tech company in Seattle to buy us. And we ended up meeting SAP, and SAP was like, hey, we want to fund you. You should go and start your own company. Met the Fontanelles Partners guys. They wrote us another check to go and start AVRL. And we pivoted from a voice tech, like consumer product, into how do we bring voice technology into business application? So imagine speaking to your TMS and it fills out all the data. That type of thing is what we intended to go after.
When was the deal with BMW? What year was that?
2017. It was literally within like 4 months of incorporating the company.
Okay, awesome. And then how quickly after that did you all have the conversation with SAP and then get the funding?
Same year.
Sick.
Same year, 2017. Yeah.
Going after it.
Yeah. It was like boom, 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 and then gone. And we had been working on the tech, but we had never worked on a go-to-market strategy prior to that. But we ran this strategy. Anyone that's ever fundraised money does the similar strategy. Fly into Silicon Valley, meet with Volkswagen, meet with BMW, meet with Ford, meet with a couple of others same day, say whoever signs the agreement first will work exclusively with you for a year. And it was that kind of deal, and we signed it and then moved on. And then that same year we raised money.
Got it. Okay. Yep. So got the money, pivot to the voice, but B2B in transportation.
So it wasn't transportation originally, actually. Okay. No, we were trying to go into a bunch of other markets. We've worked with a ton of the top 25 global companies. We started in oil and gas, really, is where like we started the most traction. So oil and gas traders, parsing data from them directly into their ERP system. We started working with some really big retailers on their maintenance systems. And what kind of led me to transportation is we were working with a massive retailer in Arkansas. They had been using our technology to do like 3-point inspections on their truck. So, you have like a 30-day inspection, 90-day inspection, stuff like that. Walk around the truck, speak to it. We fill out the maintenance application. And then if we needed to order a part, automatically order and automate that piece, the execution piece. I got introduced to JB Hunt by them. And I went in to sell that product to JB Hunt. And they were like, this is great. Can you automate our spot bidding? And I was like, I don't know what spot bidding is. Let's look at it. And then we did it, and it was wildly successful, like more successful than anybody knew and that it would be. And then we got another call from a 3PL, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And this is a big number that I'm about to say. Like, we automate about 25 million transactions a month right now for 3PLs. Like, it's way more than a lot of people realize.
25 million
a month.
A month?
Yeah.
Is bonkers.
I know. It's a lot.
Okay. I have so many questions. So you have this conversation where you all are working on this product with a retailer. You get introduced to JB Hunt. Boom. They bring this other solution. They say, we need to solve this. Can you do it? You're like, all right, cool. Give it a try. It works really well.
Yeah.
What were the steps from we're doing one solution, we need to pivot to this industry that we don't know? How did you execute that properly to give JB Hunt a tool that would be effective?
I mean, I think one of the things that's like really good about my team is like we're not just willing to learn, like we're super interested in learning. And from a technology perspective, when you have someone like me who's technical at the helm, my CTO who's far more technical than I am, and my company is made up of about 90% engineering, and we go in and look at a problem. We're not looking at it from the like face value of how do I make this like work from a user experience? How do I make this work from an automation experience? And what I had learned with going through voice tech is that if the human can mess something up, they will. And so all of our application today is built based off of assuming that what will go wrong does go wrong. We need to augment for that. And It's even taking my company far deeper than we ever had managed. I mean, dude, I'm coming in and teaching people now how to read their data, how to read their analysis, how to structure a cost model. We're doing all the consulting and advising for free, but it's why we're batting so high from a retention perspective is I'm not just going to come deliver a tech.
Oh yeah. I think there's a much different category you put yourself in as a service provider. When you have a service that you provide, people buy it, et cetera, but the people involved in executing the deal are consultative, and what you get from buying that software or working with them as a provider is far more valuable than just the transaction of using their tech or service. You can't even compare apples to competitors at that point. It's not even the same.
Yeah. And we I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the smartest person on this conversation right now. I was watching, there was this video that I had hired this guy named Anders who was working at Convoy. He was a CH guy, went to Convoy, was like, hey, I don't want to work here. Can I come and work for you? And I was like, yeah, but I need you to teach me all this stuff about transportation. And he was like, if you really want to learn this industry, you really need to understand the hate that exists in this industry. And this was literally when you guys were building Molo. Like, I'm not even joking, because this was about 2021, I think, when we like really started to come into this space. And Andrew Silver, Dan Lewis, and I think the guy who was running procurement at Monster Energy, they do this like 3-person podcast. And Dan Lewis says something, and the Monster Energy guy looks at Andrew and he's like, I don't care if Dan Lewis buys my freight from me. The moment he stops, I'll find someone else to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like no one works cohesive. No one works like well together. It was a super big pivotal moment for us to be like, how do you build product when the 3PL doesn't trust the shipper doesn't trust the 3PL doesn't trust the carrier?
Yes. It's a wild dynamic.
And I don't think that enough people build technology to support that mentality that exists in the industry. So and I've like Jordan Graff told me one time, he's like, in transportation, you have one master. It's the broker, it's the carrier, it's the shipper, you choose. And I like had taken that to heart like big time. And so like a lot of the technology that we built out and like we sell to a 3PL, like we're not taking that to anybody else. We're going to actually limit it to the number of 3PLs that we want so that my customers get a massive competitive advantage. It's just like the whole point of like our go-to-market strategy into transportation is like, you don't want to work with us? Awesome. We're going to bet on ourselves and the people that are partnering with us all day long.
I like thinking that is counterintuitive, right? So the idea of limiting your market segment strictly to people that want to partner with you for that competitive advantage, I can assume will allow you to build better products for them that allow them to create more space between their business and competition. But if you built something that served everybody, you can never get granular enough to help them. Also, retention is probably a problem, to retain them long enough for them to see the gain that they need. But I love it because most people would say, just go get all the customers, get everybody, serve everybody.
I don't doubt that even with my cap, I sold more deals this year than any TMS provider. And I cap my customers,
Yeah. So let's talk about 2017 through 2021. You get JB Hunt as a customer throughout that time. Now you start working on this product that people are buying today. What distinct things happened 18, 19, 20, 21, we can kind of go year by year, that evolved what the product is? Because obviously you mentioned data analytics and a bunch of different things that were different than just automating spot quotes in the beginning.
Yeah. First, we started going after other use cases because we were successful at automating transactional spot freight. People were like, could you automate this? Could you automate this? Could you automate this? And so we started building like a menu of options that we come in and automate. I literally, right before this call, I had someone come and pitch me an idea that we go in and evaluate to see if it's something we can scale to our customers. I think that was like first. The challenge that we ran into was my first customers in transportation. I'd say like the first 7 customers in transportation, top 10 3PLs. So then we had built these really sophisticated tools that really complex teams could use. And you've got like people like Scott Friesen on the dial on the back end, right? The smartest person in freight.
So smart.
And so like that was a huge miss by us. So we start going down the top 100 list with super sophisticated technology. We didn't realize that, just because someone made $1 billion a year doesn't mean they have a data science team, doesn't mean they have complex analytics teams, doesn't mean they have a IT team, honestly. And so for us, we ran into this point where we were like, oh my gosh, technology is a little bit too complex for some of our customers. We actually saw some churn because of it, because we literally they couldn't figure out how to use JavaScript, which looking back on it, like maybe I should have realized that earlier, but we went and built tooling that would allow mid-market to be as successful as other people. A big turning point for us was when we hired like a GM of pricing from Knight. We hired some CH people. We started to hire some people from the industry. 2 years ago, when JB Hunt bought BNSF, let go of the BNSF team, we hired the analysts that were running our program at BNSF to come in and teach our customers how to automate their freight. And so like we started being like, okay, well, maybe we need to start investing back into the industry from a thought perspective, from a product perspective, from a utilization perspective. And we're going to end up going after the market intelligence space. I'm going to pull a big pricing person out of the space that's going to come in, help my customers with their cost modeling. And it's mostly because if you buy from AVRL, we want it to be successful. And I know I can hire elite data scientists. I don't know if like a $50 million 3PL can hire that person, but I can. So I might as well hire that person and scale it across my customers.
I like your approach because it is so much more collaborative. What you're trying to do is create a massive moat, but you're doing it on behalf of your customers, right? So your moat is inherent based on the complexities of the product, and there are other people that are going to try to do similar things, and it'll be quite hard to keep up. But what you're building makes a distinct difference in how these people operate their businesses. And it's really hard to not renew when someone is making your business actually differentiated in a very commoditized industry. It's a huge deal.
Yeah. And I think that there's so much more to go. Like we have so much more to go and do. And we're like, I really feel we're at inning number 1 still as a company. You know, I don't feel like we've really gone where we're going. I wouldn't be surprised if my company, I'll actually like state this. This is the first time I've ever stated this. Like we're going to end up being a market intelligence company in transportation. Like everyone thinks of us as an automation company, but when I'm processing that much data, it doesn't mean I'm going to go and compete against DAT. In fact, probably partner with like a DAT, partner with the big pricing people to help our customers benchmark against their rates, help them figure out where they can exploit yield in the space. That's the stuff that we're most interested in.
I love that. So a lot of the things I've seen you talk about on LinkedIn with, like tech adoption are very customer implementation forward. Something that's really interesting to see, because I think it's one thing to have a really good product. It's another thing for people to understand how to buy it and implement it. And if they don't use it properly, they're going to churn. So would you mind providing some insight on how you approach that? Because you mentioned having killer people that understand the industry to help customers understand how to use AVRL. So I'd love insight on that.
I mean, it honestly starts in our sales process. We're trying to intimidate the customer so much up front to not buy from us, that if they do buy for us, we've gone through a process of like, this is what it's going to take to be successful. And one of the people on our team, her name is Rebecca. She worked at BNSF Logistics. She ran our automation at BNSF. She literally it's part of our sales process where she's going to get on the call and tell them every single thing that they need to think about and implement if they want to be successful. And if they're not willing to do it, don't sign with AVRL. And so it starts really there. From there, we're actually going much deeper into how do you price freight than how do you automate freight. I got automation all day long. I can automate anything. That's like the easiest part. But if a customer doesn't have their pricing figured out and then we automate 10,000 loads, they're going to have a bad time if they haven't thought about everything. And so for us, we're actually walking them and guiding them through how they need to think about modeling, how they need to think about this, how they need to think about this. Not telling them what they should price on a lane, not telling them where they need to exploit yield or how they leverage capacity. But I think what's interesting is that everyone's strengths in the market are so much different than one another that if you just teach them how to do it, they can be successful, like really successful. They just don't know how. I just think that they don't know how to do it. And it's such this wild idea to automate like appointment scheduling, or like to automate transactional spot freight, or to automate like something else, that if you don't get them started down the right path, it goes in just this awful path.
Yeah. The awful path is painful for probably you and the customer to deal with. it's way more fruitful to deal with that up front, disqualify and qualify properly.
I said this at Inland Distribution Center. I think the thing that most 3PL leadership needs to understand is that if you buy tech and you fail to adopt it, you're stimulating the innovation of your competitors, because I'm going to dump every dollar back in to innovation that I make. Every dollar that I make is going back into innovation for AVRL customers. So if you fail to implement me, you literally just spurred innovation for your competition. That's it.
Yikes.
It's a scary thing to think about, which is why people need to take it so seriously.
Totally. So
and that's not just me, that's everybody, right?
100%, right? If you're not innovating as an organization, you're dying. And if you're paying for a tool that an innovation organization is building and you fail to implement it properly, tough. It's a tough look. So I have a question around the way you approach go-to-market strategy now versus early days. You mentioned now building some things that are a little bit easier for the mid-market organizations to be able to adopt. How have you all been able to execute that motion and make it a little bit more digestible in that space?
For us, we're basically taking full reins of like everything that a big organization would do. So like they come in and set up their infrastructure. We're doing it now. Set up a second company called Company B. I'm going to come in and set up your infrastructure. I have tooling that we're going to do your data reporting in. I have X, I have Y, I have Z that I'm going to bring. I'm going to have my team meet with you on a weekly basis to review your data. Like we're going so deep into the process of that we're seeing our success massively skyrocket. And then our go-to-market's different from the standpoint of we're basically just only getting inbound leads at this point. That's it. We don't even market or advertise, and we probably get 5 inbound leads a week.
It's a hell of a place to be in.
We got to just keep getting better, right? Because that can go away too.
Oh yeah. I mean, you don't get inbound leads and recommendations and referrals if your product doesn't work. Hard stop. They just do not come in. So that's huge.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
I have a question for you on the way you see the freight tech landscape today. I think you might have some hot takes on some players and how they position themselves and what products actually do. But, as someone that's iterated a product and one that is top of class right now, what would you say to those that are building freight tech is core to making sure their product is adopted, or core to making sure that customers are happy with what they're getting?
I think I learned a really hard lesson in 2022, which was market in 21 flying for capacity so tight, rates are so high that we weren't focused on innovating and making the customers' lives much easier. And we were selling so much product that I was probably being irresponsible to the fact that we should really evaluate if a customer can be successful with our technology or not. I think the other thing was I started out as a platform, and I'm going to talk about a company, but I'm not slamming them, but I just think it's something that they need to think about. You take like a Happy Robot, so much publicity around this company right now. They're doing incredible things. Andy at Circle has absolutely killed it with this technology. It's a platform. So unless you are going to be sophisticated about how you configure the platform, how you build everything, like do you have an IT team that can actually do the work to get it done? It's not going to be successful. You take a company like Vuma, they're taking a very similar approach to me where they're going in and productizing certain things, right? So these two companies technically compete, but in my opinion, Vuma will win because Vuma is going in and selling a very specific use case. It does a very specific thing. They're doing all the work and delivering it. And I think that in transportation, the sophistication of technology is still not there yet from a 3PL perspective. Tech providers need to be responsible for those gaps that exist in the 3PL. If you want to be successful in the market, one, and two, to be a responsible tech provider is like, hey, you can't just drop tech on someone's door. You need to go in and teach them how to use it. You need to deliver it in a way that is digestible, et cetera. It's something that we're still continuously working on every day.
It's interesting to hear that, especially because of how complex the solution is that you're selling, but that can ring true for any sales process or any sales cycle. And it doesn't matter how crazy complex the tool is. If the people you're selling or the people you're selling to don't understand how they're going to implement it. Even if they buy, it's going to fail. And that's it's a really good lesson to think about during discovery, during the process of walking through it. Are they aware of how they're actually going to make this successful? If not, it doesn't matter if they sign the contract, it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I think from the buying perspective, like a 3PL leader needs to be like, when they're choosing a technology, who am I betting on to be the future? Like we tend to look today and we're like, hey, is this what I need today? But how are they looking about how it scales inside of their organization? Also, is this company going to be innovating in front of the market? You can buy a technology today. I won't name any names, but like you buy it today and they could get surpassed, like not monstrously. Like I actually will take, like, talk about a company. Take like Highway. I bet on Highway. I bet on that team that they're going to continue to innovate. They're going to continue to drive forward. And so when you're thinking about carrier vetting, when you're thinking about fraud prevention in the market, like, yeah, there's other providers, but are they going to be deploying as much resources and innovation as Highway? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. That's how I think about like the space that I compete in too, is like, I'm going to out innovate. Like I would bet on AVRL all day long to be the innovation leader in what we're doing. And I think that people don't put that into consideration when they're buying tech.
That's a really good tidbit. And it's something to think about in terms of just making decisions, because who you partner with, the ripple effect is going to be years and years and years from the point that you actually end up doing work together. So, yeah. Question to you. This is a little bit more fun. What do you enjoy the most about what you do? You're building a really cool company. You all have incredible customers. You've got a great team. What's your favorite part about what you do?
I never thought that some of my customers would be like some of my best friends. That's a wild concept. Like starting AVRL in 2017, I thought you have this massive separation between like business and like who your friends are. At this time, most of my friends are customers, which is wild.
I love that. I think if you're doing it right, it's funny enough, I have a client I'm super close with. I get a text yesterday while they're on vacation. We're working on something together. And in my head, like, man, I want to be the kind of partner that clients would want to engage with, even if they're on vacation. Now, I'm not saying you need to be working. What I'm saying is you see my name pop up on a text, you're like, that's my guy, right? Like, yeah, I'm at that level. I think that's how you build strong relationships, but it makes what you do a lot more fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like you have this, like, I have this mutual respect from my customers that, like, if they text me, that I know it's really important to them, and I'm going to make sure that we get it done as well. And if we're making money together and like everything's great, they're happy to pay me money as a vendor. And that obviously makes life like way easier.
Totally. Man, I love that collaborative approach. As we get ready to wrap up here, can you give me what you would say today's 10,000 foot flyover of the AVRL product is? It's developed a ton, but for anyone that may have fast forwarded, maybe they didn't hear the whole evolution, give me the 10,000 foot overview of the product.
So AVRL, I hate describing because automation is the most overly used phrase in transportation. We are an automation provider, but what we do is we fill gaps that exist when connecting complex systems together. So if you are a 3PL or a carrier and you work with enterprise level shippers, you might have to go into that shipper's system, whether it's API or web-based, to automate spot bidding, schedule appointments, upload PODs, BOLs, lumpers, do invoice reconciliations and banking systems, do tracking items. We automate the execution between your TMS and that system entirely. That's what we do.
Awesome, man. So before we get ready to wrap here, you have a favorite book, anything that you're reading or one that you really, really like?
Dude, Ryan Schreiber's going to kill me because I haven't finished the book that I am reading. I'm reading a book right now called Ego is the Enemy. And do you know this book?
I have read it.
Okay. It's good. I recommend it. It created a lot of thought process for me. For those of you who don't know this book, every entrepreneur or someone who wants to do great things has to have somewhat of an ego. That same ego can be the thing that tears you back down. And so you have to find balance with ego. Something obviously I need, definitely. So probably why I haven't finished the book. You know?
You crack me up, man. It's a good read, though. It is. It is. Okay, and actually, two final questions. Anything upcoming in the biz that we can be on the lookout for?
Yeah, dude, we've got some new hires that are going to shock the industry. So like, just in general, I think that people are going to be like, whoa, where like are they going or what are they doing? And I think that one of the things that I didn't realize was like, if you work on complex technology or complex problems, or you're doing something like really unique, like Journey's doing, like the access to talent that you're getting, insane.
Bananas. When you build cool products, really, really qualified, talented people want to be part of what you're building.
Yeah. So I'm excited mostly about that. And I think it's like interesting, like we're doing like a whole talent upgrade. Not saying that like everyone on my team is awful or anything, but what we did this last year was we went and found the midpoint, and then we've just been like hiring above it. And it's just like very different and a big change for us.
That's awesome. I look forward to seeing some of the incredible people that are joining the squad. Last thing here, best place for people to engage with you or the AVRL team?
This is going to sound hilarious. Like if you direct message me on LinkedIn, I likely will not see it. I get so many that I almost like ignore it. I think contact at avrl.io, that will go directly to someone that will push that message directly to me. I think also Madison and Sydney on my team are super good resources. So Madison Santo, Sydney Trichel, both good options as well.
Beautiful, man. I really appreciate you taking some time to tell us the story behind you and building AVRL. Really, really cool to watch, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.